Welcome back, Flyers Nitty Gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with It with your host, Yariv, Wolok, my partner in crime, as always, Vasili Gianarakos. Vasili, what's going on, brother?
Doing good, Yariv. It's been a little bit, so nice to chat, obviously, and get to talk about some Flyers hockey. Flyers right now, as we head into this episode, are currently 8-10-2 and 6th place in the Metropolitan Division. Also, it's officially, the 20-game mark, so typically that's a great sample size to kind of analyze and look at and really kind of understand maybe what this team has been and what this team kind of is throughout 20 games. So I'm excited for the conversation. Going to be a fun one. How you doing, my friend?
Yeah, man, it's a good place to be in. Obviously, the American Thanksgiving is right around the corner, so it's usually around where the 20-ish game mark. Obviously, it'll be a little bit past that. We are slated to have Jamie Baskow on next week. Obviously, co-founder of Flyers Nitty Gritty with me. And I thought it'd be a good idea to have him come in. So we are like right at that point where people start judging the team and saying this is who they are. I will caveat, I don't really buy into that this is who we are, but it is a large enough sample size. I agreed with that it is enough to at least run a retrospective on what has happened.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that a team in 20-game mark defines who they are. We see all the time.
There's definitely time to improve and adjust certain things.
And get worse, too.
Yeah, that too, exactly. I think it's good from our sense as, two guys doing a podcast about a team weekly, that now we have 20 games, set sample of certain stats that you can really pick from and kind of talk about, which is great.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're going to pull up some good stats here. All right, I want to get right into it. So let me get through the usual spiel here. Just want to remind everybody, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe if you can. It's a tremendous way to help us. Like the video if you like what we're doing. And hit the notification bell for notification. Get notified on when the videos come out. Typically they're Monday between Wednesday. We try to go around games, but this week I was in Brazil. Up until Tuesday afternoon, so we ended up having to record on a Thursday after the Flyers lost to the Carolina Hurricanes. We will talk about that as well. But typically they'll be out, but the notification bell will help you kind of get notified. We're trying to be consistent, but the reality is we have full-time jobs beyond this and other stuff going on. And I'm also working on another project, which I have told nobody about. I will announce that eventually. Has nothing to do with hockey. That's why I haven't brought it up on here, but that will come up in the near future. Also, just for the audio versions, go to Spotify and iTunes. That's the best source for the audio versions. We'll release them the same time we release the video versions. And you can find us pretty much everywhere. But we post everything through Spreaker. But it should output to every audio channel. So, and also let's do the sponsor shout out. So first sponsor, Jim Steaks at 4th and South. Make sure to get yourself a cheesesteaks from Jim Steaks. It is now cheesesteak season. Go and get yourself one of the best, if not the best cheesesteak in Philadelphia. Jim Steaks at 4th and South. And also shout out to Summit Public Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Make sure to go to them for all your insurance adjustment need. They will help you facilitate the process between you and your insurance company. They will help get rid of all of those annoying things that everybody hates dealing with when dealing with the insurance company. So again, that is Summit Public Adjusters, 215-752-0560. And also just want to give a shout out to our newest partners. Not that new at this point. SportsSpider.com. Guys, if you're tired of searching for multiple websites for sports news, SportsSpider.com has you covered. They collect the latest articles, videos, and podcasts from around the web and organize them by your favorite teams. If you want to stay as up to date as possible on our Philadelphia Flyers or the NHL in general, check out the link in the description to SportsSpider.com. Again, the link is in the description. They are our partners. Our stuff is kind of pinned to the top when we release it. But they're a pretty great site. They have a bunch of other content from everybody in the Philly area. And they also cover all the NHL teams and all the other sports teams as well. So if you're interested, check out sportspider.com. All right, let's get into news. As of right now, we'll start off with Cam York. There's not news per se, but I will give credit to Charlie O'Connor. He is definitely on the ball when it comes to the journalism aspect of the Flyers. He does a really great job, but Cam York has been skating. He did not play, but he is practicing fully, and so is Jamie Drysdale for that matter. So the two of them, both humongous losses. York being really, really big loss for this team. He's been out for a while. I think 13 games so far.
Yeah.
It does seem like he's close and maybe playing in the next game. I think, but
Yeah,
no announcement as of yet.
I think it's definitely possible that we see him enter soon. I mean, I think one like particular aspect to note, and Charlie also mentioned this in his report, so shout out to him. But essentially, York is skating in the contact jersey, right? Like he's not wearing a no contact jersey. He is
Mhm.
taking contact in practice, so that is a sign that he might be coming along here. But nonetheless, right, the status still remains day to day. He still is on IR. And that's along with Sam Urson and Jamie Drysdale. And I
Yeah,
think more of that and the reason why some of these guys are remaining on IR probably a little longer than they should be here is the Flyers have certain guys on the roster that they would not be able to have if these players were removed from the injured reserve status, right? But
yeah,
you have to hope for the Flyers, even though they've kind of treaded water here with York being out, with Drysdale being out, with Andre being out. Those are all really three big assets to this blue line and moving the puck up the ice. So the ideal would be, even though they kind of are treading water here with Sanheim, Ristolainen, and Sealer playing really well, getting some of these guys back is ultimately going to help them and their play going forward. So
yeah, 100%. I think York is just such a huge loss for this team. It was kind of like not as noticed because the team was playing poorly as a whole when he was healthy. Then they started playing well. But if you can insert a player of his caliber into this team, a lot of these games where they're kind of like losing by one or just, having slower starts or overplaying Sanheim, to the point where
yeah,
he's playing 30 minutes a night.
it could
You
impact the
can
game positively, right?
yeah, and could help the power play out. Even with York alone, I know that Torts hasn't been like big on using him on the power play of late, but he wasn't with Sanheim either, and he started putting Sanheim on the power play.
Well,
So it's
yeah.
go ahead, go ahead.
I think too, you just have to wonder as well. Obviously, some of these other guys have been playing okay. Like Sanheim, I mean, is far beyond okay. Like he's playing at a level we've never seen him before. We're going to get into that in full later on. But like for example, Ristolainen is on a top pair right now. Nick Sealer's playing, in a top four role. Like if you have York in there. It's kind of shifting some of these guys back down to maybe where they should be situated. Because I do believe, like, if you're looking at top pairing options and who are your best players to put against those other teams' top lines, really, I think Sanheim and York are probably the most equipped to do that right now. Whereas, if you can push down some of those other guys while these other players get healthy, then you have a defense core that's kind of situated where it should be, and then you might get better results that way as well.
Yeah, and look, it's very rare that a team goes through a season completely healthy and this doesn't happen. I will say it's nice to see other guys pop out. Like, for instance, Andre is out right now. We know he's has an injury. It's unfortunate. Apparently it's not long term. That's what we're hearing. But we don't know. I would expect he's probably out till after the Thanksgiving holiday. Um, but we'll see. But again, having guys like Andre be able to step up, and now Helge Grans, who got the call up, having 2 games under his belt. First game better than the second, but I wouldn't not blame the Flyers' poor third period. Let's put it that way, because I do want to talk about that. On Grans, I thought he's done well, but it's nice that the next man up mentality that Tortorella has had. We saw this last season too with guys like Belpedio coming in and not missing a beat and having strong games. Seeing that guys from the minors can come up and play well. And there's obviously Samu Tuamala, who is above a point per game player right now in the AHL. Like that's another guy. We had Richard come up, right? And I do want to. I didn't have him listed on here, but I do want to talk about. We'll talk about it in the show. But we have guys who can kind of flow up and do either an adequate to very good job. Andre being the standout there. But it's nice to see, that we're not. we're not a team devoid of talent. I know a lot of people like to kind of say that online. It's just completely untrue. We do lack talent in certain areas, but this is not a team that's like at the bottom of the league talent. They're middle of the road talent level. It's just the reality. You can be upset about them being middle of the road, but it's the reality of what they are. They have some really good pieces, some not so good, some like kind of at the end of their rope, some guys who probably won't turn out to be much. Like I did have a conversation with somebody briefly on Twitter where he was talking about how LA gave up on Helge Grans and how he's not worth anything. And my only response was, "Is this sarcasm?" And I was like, he's 22. I was like,
Yeah, as a defenseman in, let's say, the NHL, typically you might not even, actually make your debut till that age, 22, 23,
well,
21, especially for a second round pick. And I would say
he was
too, like,
traded at 20.
yeah, but I would also add, like, most defensemen don't really get into an area where they are entering their primes in the NHL till like the mid 20s. So you really still have a lot of road left to
Right.
develop him.
And just because guys don't manifest to be top line or top six forwards or top pairing or
Could be a
top three,
useful bottom pairing guy.
exactly, doesn't mean they have
Yeah.
no value. And I just think it's been good from that aspect that the injuries have piled up, but the team has not collapsed. It's hurt them. I would argue it has hurt them. They can be better than what they've done so far. But they are not collapsing under the weight of injuries. And we saw that happen to the Flyers last year in that very pivotal moment where they did have a lot of injury problems. And people keep bringing that time period up. And yes, the team collapsed. They deserve to be criticized for it. But we know why they collapsed. It's not like a complete mystery. We overplayed Erison, and our D was like we have what, three defensemen of the top six left. Maybe it was two at one point. In that span, like most teams are not going to do very well, especially teams that are wild card teams and not, upper echelon teams like the Carolina Hurricanes. Which, by the way, I will say this: I think the Hurricanes that we are seeing right now is the best version of the Hurricanes that I have seen. I don't know. I guess over the past like 7-8 years.
Yeah, they're
Personally,
looking good. I think the big thing for them is Natchez has taken a whole other step. Like he's basically like top three in scoring. He's hit 30
yeah.
points. When you have a guy like that turn into one of the best players in the league overnight, and he's still on your team from prior seasons. I mean, that's a great addition,
Well,
obviously.
that's what's
So,
supposed to happen, right? You're supposed to allow more veteran. Imagine if they had Jay Gensel still and he didn't. I wonder if he regrets that at all. Probably not
hey,
because he's getting paid, but and he's
still
making
making those
money.
millions. So
Yeah, and it's not like Tampa Bay is horrible. I mean, they're going to
not
make the
like getting to
playoffs.
play with Nikita Kucherov is a
Yeah.
terrible thing or
Oh yeah,
anything.
yeah.
So.
How terrible. All right, let's get into the real meat and potatoes of the episode. We're gonna pepper in a bunch of mini topics into here, but obviously the Flyers are at the 20 game mark. I will start off with a tweet from Jordan Hall, which
It's a great way to
he
summarize.
yeah, he tweeted this out this morning. And I just thought it was, yeah, like you said, a great summary. Flyers in the first 20 games last season, they were 10, 9, and 1 with a 3.15 goals per game and a 2.90 goals allowed per game. And mind you, they had Carter Hart at that time. In the Flyers' first 20 games this season, they are 8, 10, and 2, so pretty similar. They have a 2.7 goals per game, definitely worse. And a 3.5 goals allowed per game, definitely worse. And again, some of that can be explained by the goaltending issues that they had that is now kind of settled. We'll talk about that. And last season, 4 D-men had played in every game. This season, only 2. So clearly injuries have been part of the story and goaltending has been part of the story.
Yeah.
But even with that terrible start, at least surface level being
6 game
1-5-1,
losing streak, right? Like,
right?
let's say hypothetically you get a couple more points on that losing streak, you're pretty much in a wild card spot. Just before we really get into like meat and potatoes of it and just certain topics, I'll just caveat that even though they're 8, 10, and 2, the Flyers have 18 points right now. and they're currently 1 point out of being tied for that last wild card spot. So right now, the Buffalo Sabres are in the final wild card spot in the Eastern Conference with 19 points. Behind them sits the New York Islanders, who also have 19 points. You have the Boston Bruins with 19 points, and then the Flyers and Penguins both have 18 points. So it's a pretty tight race there for, that last spot. And this is kind of, where we anticipated the Flyers would be, right? We anticipated that they were going to be fighting for a playoff spot right on the bubble, and that's essentially kind of where they are here through the 20 games.
Yeah, and if they would have got a little bit better goaltending, again, Fedotov really did not look good in the beginning of the season. I don't think he's the sole reason they lost a lot of the games, but he definitely was a big part of those games. And you figure if the Flyers even just didn't have such a poor start, they probably would be just a little bit higher. Obviously, not much higher, but maybe 21 points, 22 points, something
Maybe you
like
get
that.
a point or two, yeah, extra,
And they
exactly.
might be in a wild card spot. But look, every team's dealing with their own problems. It's not an excuse, right? The team is the sum of the whole. They picked Fedotov to be the backup, so it is what it is. But again, this is why, like, when people were freaking out in the first like 8 games of the season, I wasn't really freaking out. My whole thing is no matter what happens this season, and I'll say it again, the Flyers built insurance into this year, right? And we've talked about it endlessly. There are 6 picks in the first 2 rounds as of now. And that doesn't include the option of trading guys away, which is still out there. And I know a lot of people have given up on this, but I do see. We'll talk about Frost a little bit later, but I do see a reality where this could be Scott Lawton's last year with the Flyers. It's kind of what my gut
Yeah.
tells me, to be honest with you.
I think with the depth, it
Go ahead.
makes just with the center depth. Let's say they have a lot of center depth, but there are some young players like in the bottom 6 roles that you might want to see graduate next season.
Yeah.
And there's certain guys you're gonna have to move away from if that's the case. So I think it's definitely a potential thing that could happen. We'll just have to wait and see. One thing I did want to mention is
Sure.
just going over, something that kind of is interesting in terms of 20 games. So here's like point projections right now for most players who've played 10 plus games. And shout out to Alex Appleyard. He tweeted this out. So this is
I
from
saw
him.
that. Yep.
But yeah, this is something that's interesting. I think it's kind of something that we talked about before the beginning of the season and something that we thought that was critical to the Flyers having success this year, right? Like a lot of their middle of the lineup, younger guys, we kind of stated before the season started, we wanted to see them really take a step up. And that was going to be a big factor in the Flyers becoming a better team, becoming a playoff team, and really kind of showing that, they've taken that next step forward in terms of where they are as an organization. So right now, just looking at point projections, Travis Konecny's on pace for 99 points, which, I mean, almost 100-point season. And if you look at that contract, I think it's about fair value for a guy who's a 100-point player. And that's kind of something that we talked about in the offseason earlier. Matvei Michkov's projected at 72 points right now. Bobby Brink, 46. Owen Tippett, 43. Sean Couturier, 41. Joel Farabee, 35. Morgan Frost, 31. Ryan Paling, 31. Scott Lawton, 30. Garnett Hathaway, 30. Tyson Forrester, 23. And Noah Cates at 11. And then I think I do have defensemen as well that I can go through here. So just give me one moment. Actually, no worries. We can just talk about the forwards first.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's your thoughts just on seeing kind of those projections, Yariv, through 20 games? And do you think that some of these young guys that we kind of talked about need to take a step up? Do you believe that so far they've underwhelmed and we do kind of need to see them do a little bit better here offensively?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely a lot of them have underwhelmed, even Bobby Brink included. They've all had nice moments. Joel Farabee is somebody I thought would take a step forward. I don't really like. I think it's a nice summation of projections, but I don't really think any of those are going to be accurate. The only two I can see being accurate of the point production is TK being around 90
Yeah.
points and Michkov being around 70 to 80 points. Those I definitely think are probably pretty accurate. The other ones I think will all go up personally, especially like somebody like Owen Tippett. Sean Couturier, I think, will break 50 points. Noah Cates, I think, will finish with more than 11 points. I think the Flyers have struggled offensively a lot this season, but and I do have this as a topic here. I'll roll into this, and then you can add your thoughts on top. But like I think that the majority of the Flyers' problems, and I was so happy. Maybe people saw me saying this online. I don't know. I've been saying it nonstop. The Flyers' main problems on offense are, and I would argue their turnovers are rooted in their inability to move away from opting for a pass. That could be a confidence issue, but the fact that they pass up shots, like if you guys are watching the game and you see an opportunity, even if it's not a great scoring chance, and you see when they opt to force a pass, which they have done a bit, and there's three big ones from last night, Tippett, Forrester, and Mitchkov all passed up a shot when the team had four shots in the second period, and it was in the beginning of the third or the end of the second. It was like around that time where they just weren't shooting the puck on net. And every single time that happens, it leads to a turnover the opposite way, and all momentum is killed, as opposed to getting an offensive faceoff, at the very least creating some chaos. The shot allows the rest of your team to catch up to the game and not play from behind. There's so many good things that happen from shooting, and so many bad things that come from overpassing, where, yes, sometimes the pass is necessary. I don't want to micromanage players, but their instinct should be to get that puck on net. And if you watch Carolina, they shoot from everywhere at all times, and it creates complete chaos. And I'll sum it up here, Vasili, and I'll let you talk. Sealer was asked about this in his post game, and he said, "Oh yeah, Tortorella told us that we need to start shooting." They didn't. They didn't listen to him. They actually went the opposite way for whatever reason. They still passed up on shots. But I believe that that's where it actually turns into quicksand for them, is that they stop shooting, and then it gets harder as the game goes on to get shots on net, and then you start forcing them. And I just feel like majority of this team's problems offensively, in the offensive zone and in the neutral zone, are stemmed from not shooting, not from not having the chance. A lot of nights they've had four shots in the second period, three shots in the second.
Yeah.
That is rooted from them not shooting. That is like not an accurate definition of, or a representation of, whether they were around the net and had the opportunity. They just are not taking it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, I totally agree with those sentiments. Like, obviously, the Flyers, first of all, they went from one of the highest shooting teams last season, which saw them, have quite a bit of success, to a team right now that, if you look at team stats, they're 28th in the league in shots on goal with 26.6. So you have to look at that as something that, hey, like, this worked for us last season. We're not executing the same type of style in the same manner, and it's kind of biting us a little bit, especially in that Carolina game. Like, just to kind of emphasize your point, like, John Tortorella, as the coach, states in between periods, as Nick Sealer said, that the team really needs to shoot more, passing up on a lot of shot opportunities. I would say it's not even shot opportunities, but it's just the way that they're thinking about creating plays. Like, I feel like they're kind of looking for that perfect pass, and they're kind of overthinking it, in a sense where they really just need to be simple, move north, get pucks deep in certain situations if needed, or get pucks towards the net, because, as you said, right, they struggle scoring, and keeping it simple is something that could help you in an area like that. But yeah, just to emphasize, Yariv, like, shots on goal in the third period last night, 16-4, Carolina, after the coach kind of says that, you need to take some shots, and shot attempts were 29-5 in that third period. Total shot attempts for the game, 82-37 for the Hurricanes. And that's just, the Hurricanes do put everything towards the net, and that's kind of why they have a bloated number there. But, like, for the Flyers to be basically, like, almost tripled up in shot attempts, in a sense, like, that's not ideal.
They're not taking the opportunities that they have to shoot. They're double clutching, and again, it is killing them.
Well, you never know, right? You can create a rebound. You never know what's going to happen sometimes when you throw it to the net, especially 100%. for a team that's struggled to score, right? And I think it hasn't been a lot of their top of the lineup guys. I think you can't really ask too much more from Konechny or Michkov. Even Couturier
passed the ball on a shot in the third period last night. It drove me nuts.
No,
like,
that
no
too.
shots on net.
That too, but I'm just saying, like, from an offensive point production standpoint, like, I think, he's on pace for almost 100 points.
Oh yeah, of course.
Michkov,
He's playing great. I'm
Michkov,
not.
yeah, Michkov over 70 points. Even Couturier is a guy that's like on pace for over 40 points, and I think would be a little bit higher if you kind of took away those first 3-4 games where he really wasn't getting played up the
Right.
lineup at all. I think what's hurting the Flyers right now, like, I think in terms of a offensive standpoint, first of all, like you said, obviously not being direct enough with opportunities they do have. Like, you're struggling to score goals. It's a 1-1 game. You have a shot on net or an opportunity to get the puck to the net. I think you just have to take
You have
it.
to take it.
But I think a lot of their depth scoring has been, hurting them in the sense that you have some of these younger guys that I'm sure Danny Briere and the staff in Tortorella were probably hoping that they would see a little bit more offensive production from. Some of them haven't done that yet. I think one thing to note is a lot of these guys have probably been playing their worst hockey that we've seen in a few years, like Morgan Frost, even Owen Tippett. I think this is probably one of his worst stretches that we've seen. So you have to hope that, okay, maybe these worst stretches happen to start the season here, and you kind of see things turn around, right? This might be them at their worst right now with their depth scoring kind of very limited. You might get to see some of that depth scoring come out of the woodwork here in, the next 10, 20 games. But I think for the Flyers right now, they're really relying heavily on their top, forwards, and they're going to need some help from some of the bottom of the lineup guys, some of the more depth guys, if they're going to be, staying, in this wild card race here.
Yeah, I think that's great analysis. I do think the bottom end guys will start producing more. Like a guy like Tyson Forrester, started slow last year, starting slow a little bit now.
Could be a bit of a sophomore slump situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, like, Scott Lawton hasn't been generating a lot of offense. Ryan Paling's been okay, but like a lot of guys are not creating
Yeah,
much
he was
much
benched too
offense.
last night, Lawton, right? One of the lowest in terms of minutes. I think played only 8
Yeah.
minutes. But I
Well,
think, yeah, sorry. Go
well, so
ahead.
I just wanted to add this because I don't want to forget it. Like, if you look at that Colorado game and you look about how first of all, they did not play poorly in that game. Again, they're playing a high skilled team. A lot of people were saying that the Flyers were dominated for majority of that game. That is absolutely not true. They were not dominated. There were stretches that Colorado was just doing Colorado things with superstars out there. Okay, fine. But the Flyers had a slew of scoring chances. They played a pretty decent
They
game.
just didn't capitalize on a lot
Well,
of them.
if you look at that last 10 minutes, they were shooting from everywhere. And Colorado was in complete panic mode. That's pretty much what the Hurricanes did to the Flyers in the third period.
Yeah.
Like, they were just like, yeah, we're
Well,
just going to start firing pucks on net.
The Flyers,
every
the
opportunity we had.
Flyers, they hung with the Hurricanes through 2 periods. Like, I would argue the Hurricanes might have had a little bit better in terms of the quality chances, but they hung with them. And then the third period, they just totally collapsed, and the Hurricanes took over.
Played fantastic.
And what that shows to me is, I think, like, they can hang with some of these better teams, like a Colorado, like a Carolina, but they just cannot have these lapses and mistakes, and they cannot like start. They can't let themselves not play an aggressive style, because we see what happens when they aren't aggressive. They're just not able to, first of all, move the puck up the ice efficiently, but also they're not, playing connected enough when they're playing in a style where they're not aggressive and kind of not using each other as support. And I think that's what's been a major crux for the team. I would say too, like, if you look at their defensive game, it has improved and gotten better, since the beginning of the season. It's really the scoring that's kind of been lacking. And it does come, I think, from the lack of shots, lack of aggressiveness. Like John Tortorella stated in the game, or in the pregame press conference prior to the game against the Hurricanes, that the type of style the Flyers are trying to play, to be honest, is very similar to Carolina, right?
Yeah,
like, they're trying to play aggressive, up tempo, get pucks on net. And we really just haven't been seeing them execute that style very effectively for more than a handful of games this season. I think that's probably been the main style, right? Like, they have an identity they're trying to ascribe to. They're just not really able to execute on it effectively right now. And some of it comes through the lack of connectedness. Like, if you look at a lot of the goals against from Carolina last night, like the Scott Lawton goal, right? And this is why he gets benched. Or the Scott Lawton turnover is essentially leading to why he gets benched, right? He turns the puck over, making like an east-west type of pass to start the game, ends up right in the back of the Flyers net, and then he's essentially benched for a lot of the game after that. Owen Tippett has a turnover, ends up ends up, in the Flyers net. Ryan Poehling has a turnover, ends up in the Flyers net. I just think a lot of their puck management, like the way they're actually attacking, moving the puck up the ice, hasn't been as good as last season. And then because you're not getting, to manage that puck effectively, you're not really able to kind of get the puck to the net either. So a lot of things kind of in combination, but
Yeah, no, and Tortorella said it, I think, in the post game as well, that it's the simple mistakes that's killing this team. And this is something we've echoed, and this is something I've said for a long time. Is people kept saying it's a talent problem. It's a talent problem to win a cup and to be one of the best teams in the league. It's not a talent problem to be competitive on a nightly basis
yeah,
and to
exactly.
be a wild card team. Most of the NHL teams are about even when it comes to talent. Most teams in the league don't have a McCarr and a McKinnon, and like even Natchez is not, while he's having a great season, he's like in the Travis Konechny territory, right? He's not like the best player in the world. They just execute as a team. They have a collection of really good players and they execute on their game. And the Flyers were that team last year with less talent than Carolina, but they were executing.
Yeah.
And I think it's still early enough that for them to turn this around, but they really need to stop the stupid mistakes and shoot the puck more. I think stopping the mistakes is harder than shooting the puck more. Like shooting the puck more is a simple adjustment that they need to
Yeah.
make. And I think it must happen. And I think it'll happen as the defensive guys. And you mentioned it last night through WhatsApp or maybe it was on Twitter to me, that a lot of their problems stem from the breakout passes too, and how not having Andre and Drysdale and
And
having
York, yeah.
York on there definitely hurts them, right? And getting that puck out of the zone quicker. Having said that, when they're in the zone too, they're still not shooting enough. And I'll throw Mitchkov in that camp too. I've seen him, though he's not egregious in this category, but there have been times where I was hoping he would take a shot, and he opted for a pass. And I appreciate that. He's again an offensive genius. That is obvious. And I don't want to necessarily nitpick him, and I wouldn't start doing that if I was Tortorella. But I want them instinctively. It would be a team statement, not to pick on individuals, to be like, shoot the freaking puck all the time.
Yeah,
I
and
don't care if you score. Like, so much good things happen if you get the puck on net.
well,
And I
first of
think it's one of the
all,
team's biggest problems for sure.
yeah, first of all, you're not allowing the other team to potentially turn the puck around on you so quick, right? Like, let's say you go
Right.
for some sort of passing play doesn't work, that's a turnover, and then
Yes.
you're back the other way. You're having to back check. You're having to get into your defensive positioning, right? Whereas, let's say even if it was a shot that hypothetically you think isn't going to go in as a player, what could happen is a rebound. What could happen is a whistle where you're not allowing that team to pick that puck off you and quickly due to a turnover and kind of turn it around on you and get burned, right? And I think that's been a big issue for the team, and I think it plays into this stat. So here's another stat as well from Alex Appleyard. So shout out to him because we've kind of been quoting him a bit here. But yet another
Good guy to
stat
quote.
saying, what was that?
I
Sorry.
said good guy to quote.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
He has another stat here saying that only 7 of 22 Flyers that have played over 5 games have more than a 48% expected goals for rate. So basically, Sean Couturier has a 58.2% expected goals for.
It's
Neil Andre 57.9 expected goals for. Cam York 57.8 expected goals for. Those are two guys driving play in Andre and York that are not in the lineup, obviously. Then you have Tippett at 52.9% expected goals for. TK's at 52.2% expected goals for. Travis Sanheim's 52.1% expected goals for. And Mitchkov 50.9% expected goals for. So without those guys on the ice, like they're really losing the expected goals for battle, which is territorial play, creating chances, dictating play on the ice. So really, if the first line, first pair aren't on the ice right now, like the Flyers are having a lot of trouble kind of controlling play. And I think that comes from the mistakes and probably from issues with the breakout, because if you can't break the puck out of your own end, how are you going to dictate the expected goals for rate and kind of creating opportunities and chances? So I think it's something, the being able to break the puck out effectively, controlling the play through the neutral zone, controlling the puck effectively through the neutral zone, along with actually getting pucks on net. Like those are probably the two aspects of their system, of their game they're going to need to improve on as
Yeah,
they kind of go
100%.
along here.
It's making me think that this is one of the reasons Anthony Richard has been so good. Um, and I kind of pointed out, I'm pretty sure he is the best, like, I guess, 27, 28-year-old call up I've ever seen, at least in the modern era from the Flyers. But what he does is one, he can play Tortorella's system, right? His speed definitely allows that. But
Yeah.
he plays a pretty simple game. He has an offensive skill set for sure, but he shoots the puck from everywhere. He's aggressive. He's always trying to get the puck to the net. And he was above a point per game pace at one point. I think he's probably sitting right around maybe
He's got 5 points, I think, now in like 7 games.
6 points
Six.
in six
Okay.
games, I think. So he's been a point per game player for a guy who's a recent call up, and he's not the most talented guy on the team. He's just throwing the puck on net all the time. He is able to get to those places quickly, but I think he's been really good for a call up. And it's a big reason why Frost hasn't been able to get back in the lineup, to be honest
Yeah,
with you.
6 points in 7 games. Like he's scoring,
Okay.
he was scoring more than Frost, so that's essentially why you can't
Frost
take him
has
out.
Frost has what, 7 points in 17 or something?
Yeah, like something like that.
Yeah, the same as Ryan Paling. So, and we'll talk about Frost separately. The other thing I do want to talk about Michkov, and we can talk more about like the 20 game mark in general. But this screenshot came up on the television the other night. I did think, talk a little bit about positivity. It's been a couple games since then. Or no, one game since then. This was against Colorado. Matvei Michkov has 15 points this season in 16 NHL career games. That puts him in the category with Artemi Panarin in 2015-16, had 16 points in 16 games, and Panarin, he should have been 24 at the time.
Yeah.
Kirill Kaprizov also should have been about 23, 24, I think, at the time. And 2021-22, 15 points in 16 games. Connor Bedard, who was 18, had 15 points in 16 games in 2023-24. And Austin Matthews had 12 points in 2016-17. That category of players is absolutely sick. Kaprizov and Panarin maybe
Great comparison, obviously.
outside of Kucherov, who struggled more in the entry level into the NHL. Obviously, this is why we talk about all the time. It's not how you start in the league. Obviously, they're maybe the two best Russian players outside of Kucherov and Ovechkin, I guess, in the world. They're definitely not the top five for sure. And then Connor Bedard, who's struggling a little bit right now, not that much, but not on the same exact pace as he was last year. Pretty similar
Yeah, he's
to
got
it.
15 points in 19 games, so not bad.
Yeah. He's still doing really well for a 19-year-old. Connor Bedard, obviously potential generational player. We talked about this the entire offseason since Michkov was drafted, that Michkov and Bedard, there's no reason why people should be higher on Bedard than they are Michkov offensively. We talked about how that was all media manufactured. Steve Corniano said that from day one. By the way, we're going to have him on in 2 weeks, and we're going to talk about Michkov. But obviously, Michkov in that category. And then Austin Matthews is borderline generational talent, at least from a goal scoring standpoint, dealing with some injuries right now. But quite an impressive list of players to sit with. And while Michkov has some ups and downs, as expected, because he's a rookie, that is some incredible company. And we've already seen, what he's doing in comparison to other Flyers rookies. Eric Lindros included in that list, and he's right there with these guys. So he has been everything that has been advertised and more at times. And if he can get more effective at his two-way game, he could end up being better than every player on this list, in my opinion. But having said that, Austin Matthews is a really good two-way player. And Bedard, time will tell to see if he can become a good two-way player too, because that potential is there for him also. I do not doubt Bedard. But if he can be better defensively than Panarin and Kaprizov, then, you're looking at a crazy talented player. I think he's been great.
I think through 20 games, there's really nothing else you could ask for from Matvei Michkov. I think the major thing from me actually through the 20 games, it's not even the fact that he's put up 15 points in 18 games and looks like an elite player already so early into his NHL career. And the real promising thing about it is 15 points in 18 games, and he's still not even close to his best. Like there's
And the
still
team can't
years.
around him can't score.
Yeah, there's years and years of development ahead for him to continue to improve and get better. That's one thing to note. And another thing to note is he probably would have more points. There's a lot of players that he set up, in the first 18 games that didn't finish on a lot of chances, empty nets, missed shot opportunities, whatever it may have you. But it could be higher. And it is impressive to see that, he's at 15 points in 18 games. Bedard's at 15 points in 19 games. They're about to face off Saturday. Battle of Bedard versus Michkov. That'll be very interesting to kind of see what happens for both of them there.
It'll be
But
fun.
I'm sure we're going to see that kind of matchup touted for years to come.
He's
Not
gonna
just
play.
on
He's gonna
Saturday.
play that game. He knows. He
Oh,
knows
of
the narrative.
course. So does Bedard.
And
I
he
expect
likes Bedard too. They're
yeah,
friends.
they're both friends, right? They had a whole interview kind of I think about it with Michkov, kind of talking about that and
Yeah.
how Bedard kind of invited him to stay with him or something
Yeah.
along those lines. But yeah, I expect Bedard to have a big game as well. He probably has the same exact mindset. But that's what happens for two guys that are super competitive, right? They're going to want to put
Right.
their best foot forth in that type of situation, that type of scenario. But yeah, I would say the most impressive thing for Michkov in the 20 games is, first of all, the deceptiveness, just the skill in general, like his ability to pass the puck through tight lanes, create scoring chances up out of essentially nowhere. Like he's probably, Konechny's the best player on the team right now from an offensive standpoint, point production. But in terms of like creating chances out of nowhere and just being able to break the game wide open, I think Michkov is their most dangerous forward, just from that perspective. I would say though, the most important thing in the 20 games is his ability to bounce back and kind of respond to adversity. I think that's the main thing that we're learning here about him, right? Is he got scratched for 2 games by John Tortorella. Tortorella is known to do things like this with younger players to kind of teach them, to provide learning opportunities. He could have taken it the wrong way. He did not. He came back. He had, great showings after the scratching. I think it was, I believe, 4 points in 2 games after being scratched. So it just kind of shows, that a situation like that did not spiral. A situation like that did not, hurt him. It actually benefited him. It's something to learn from. So I think that's a huge thing that you're learning about a young player, because it's the first time he's experiencing that kind of treatment at the NHL level. So to see him react in that way, I think in the first 20 games, that's honestly, the best thing you could hope for out of a young player.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And I wanted to chime in there because it goes back to the point I was making. That's what gives me hope that he can become a good two-way player too, is because under Tortorella, that demand will come in. It's not going to come in so much now, but next year it will, and the following, and depending on how long Tortorella is here, there will be a demand for him to be a better two-way player. And the fact that he's been so good at, one, he barely understands the language. Like, that's
what I mean. Once he actually starts to understand English a lot more, I feel like even some of this stuff defensively in terms of coverages or just in terms of like overall strategy the team's trying to implement, that he'll probably be able to fit more seamlessly into that on the ice, because he's going to understand, certain things. Not to say he's not understanding everything now, but some things can get lost in translation. That's just the nature of it if you don't understand the language. Like
he's also like, while he is a very thick kid, I don't think he's strong for his size, but he's also 19.
Exactly.
A lot of defense is strength, and this is why I talk about size matters quite a bit in the NHL. A lot of defense is your ability to win puck battles, to win stick battles. And as he gets stronger, a lot of these puck battles that he's losing, getting pushed off slightly, even though he's really good. For a 19-year-old, he's very difficult to get off the puck already at 19. But imagine that at 22, 23, he's going to be almost near impossible to get the puck off.
He's just gonna get stronger, and just
like
think about the rigors. Yeah, just think about the rigors of the NHL level. Like, he's not used to playing this type of schedule. Like, there's a lot of games scattered in a short amount of time. Like, he's obviously prepared. He's trained very, very hard over the summer to get ready to play in the NHL. And we're showing he can hold his own. He's showing he can hold his own and beyond above men, just based on the points he's putting up. But I think you do have to factor in too that, like, he is 19. He is playing the most games he's ever played in a condensed period of time. That's going to factor into like those puck battles, things like that. So that stuff's only going to get better and improve as he kind of gets used to the NHL level, gets stronger, gets quicker. And I guess one thing to note too, to just wrap up the Michkov talk, is he still leads the NHL in rookie scoring right now with 15 points. And he's tied with, I believe it is, Stankoven. And then behind him is Lane Hudson with 11 points, and Maxim Saplakov with 10 points. Cutter Gauthier actually fifth with 8 points. So
Yeah, he's been putting up points of late. He started
yeah,
off, which again, it should be
not
anticipated.
surprising for
Yeah,
a
like
rookie player to
I'm
start
not
slow.
going. Yeah, I'm upset with the way Cutter Gauthier behaved, but I'm not going to pretend like he is not talented. I would
He
still
is.
have
Yeah.
liked to have him on this team. I just don't want players with that kind of attitude. Um, and I'll say this though, you know, the whole thing people are commenting on his speed. There are not many like young guys who come into the league like burning a bunch of NHL
Unless
vets.
you're
Like,
Connor McDavid. Yeah.
yeah, that's like pretty rare. I do expect him to hit another gear speed wise.
He looks
Like,
quicker. Like he's actually quicker than it looks on TV though. Like people are trying to make it out like, oh, he's super slow. Like he's not
no,
slow.
I think he gets tired. I think he gets
Yeah,
tired.
I agree. Yeah.
Like what you were talking about the conditioning. I think that's a big part of it. I think he'll need to improve his conditioning, and I believe that he
Well,
will.
you can see,
Um,
right? Like when the Flyers play and have a few days off, he looks like he has a little bit more jump. If they're playing
yeah,
back to back, or like let's say they play like on Monday, day off, and play again Wednesday, you can kind of see like it affects him a little bit just in terms of the energy level. And like we said, right, 19-year-old kid getting used to the rigors of the NHL, it's to be expected, something like
yeah,
that.
absolutely. Man, I just got really excited about Jet Luchenko all of a sudden as you were. I was like, man, I was like, because that kid's already so conditioned,
I know,
so
right?
strong for his age, and so fast. I'm like, I can't wait to see him next year. But anyway,
Him and Mitchkov together will be quite a duo for
and
sure.
whoever the hell we draft this year, because look, the reality is it's going to be difficult for the Flyers to make the playoffs this year. Their division is better than it was last year. New Jersey's a force this year, right?
Yeah,
Not that they're amazing, but they're good again. So it's going to be very difficult for them to make the playoffs this year. So, assuming they draft again around number 10, they'll have opportunities to get another top guy, maybe a guy who can make the NHL early. We'll see. Right now, I'm hearing a lot of this is why I'm excited to have Steven, and he'll give us a preview of this upcoming draft. I'm hearing some like negative stuff about this draft all of a sudden that a lot of guys who had a good year last year are not putting that up this year. Still extremely early. So I'm not too concerned with that. But maybe a guy who is really good will fall to us,
exactly. You never know.
even though we didn't. Zeev Buium fell to us and we picked Luchenko anyway. I don't care. My whole thing is I just want them to hit. All right, I'm getting off topic. All right, the other person you mentioned him already. I'm not in the complete camp as everybody else. But Travis Sanheim has looked exceptional. John Tortorella has made a public statement, and now it seems to be kind of growing throughout the league that Team Canada needs to be paying attention to Travis Sanheim. Do I think Travis Sanheim is playing great? Absolutely. My whole thing is he looked great last year.
Yeah.
Up until he got that knee injury, this is Travis Sanheim that we saw last year. I can understand why people were going, well, now it's 2 years in a row, so I believe it. That aspect I do get. What I don't understand is that people are going like, oh, he's actually really good. Like that, I don't understand.
Well, he was good last season. I think for
Well,
me, it's
even the
more.
coaching staff has said that.
Oh
So
yeah,
I hold on. Let me just finish this thought real quick. Even the coaching staff has pointed out when asked in press conferences saying, "Oh, what do you think about Travis Sanheim's play?" Their immediate response is, "Yeah, well, he's been really good since last year." So, go ahead.
yeah. I mean, I would think for Sanheim, I think a lot of the maybe surprise is that he was like Cam York's hurt. Brings a lot to that pair. Even with him out, like no matter who you place next to him, like he had Grons playing with him for a lot of minutes the night he made his debut. They basically just been putting anybody next to him because he's playing, in certain situations with 30 minutes a night. Yeah, so like I think just with the guys that have gotten hurt and the fact he's continuing to play, the same level no matter how kind of who you're putting with him, he's kind of just carrying them along for the ride. It kind of just shows that he's taking that next step in his development. So like I do have some stats here as well.
Please.
Yeah, if you look at Sanheim, if he keeps up the way he's been playing, first of all, he's on a 50-point pace right now.
Yeah.
I believe it might be even higher. I think it's actually a 52-point pace. So the production from a defenseman, I mean, that's number one level defenseman type numbers. But also the expected goals for, like his expected goals for right now is a 53.98. And that's also, facing the opponent's best players. In terms of
Without
like
Cam York.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's why people are super excited that he's going out in the toughest matchups, on the penalty kill against first lines, still controlling play in terms of expected goals for, meaning that while he's on the ice, the team is still dictating play against other teams' top lines, controlling the puck more often, controlling the play. So I think that's something to really, really
Yeah,
be,
100%.
aware of. And I think for Sanheim, just in terms of killing plays, like I think a big thing with him was he was such a big body while he was younger in his career. He's a guy you want to see, seal off plays on the board, seal off plays on the corners, and sometimes he'd get out muscled in those situations, stuff like that, not happening anymore, right? And
No.
even back to last season, like if there's a board battle, chances are he's coming out of that with the puck and he's going to break the puck out after that. And I just think a lot of those plays that we saw with him kind of breaking down or him losing battles, that's kind of what he's cut out of his game. And that's where his game's really matured. I think the offense has always kind of been there. Like you've always kind of seen him be around that 30-point mark. He just never really was playing top pairing minutes. So it's kind of hard to get up to 50 points if you're only playing 15, 16 minutes a night. Now you're playing double that at 30 minutes and getting power play time and getting PK time. And, you're essentially one of the top players in terms of rushing the puck up the ice for the Flyers. I just think all those elements are kind of combining and you're seeing him, get into his prime really, right? Like this is prime Travis Sanheim at this point, a guy that you can expect to be a reliable top pairing option for you, play against other teams' top, lines on a nightly basis, and win the battle more often than not if you look at the expected goals for rate.
Yeah, yeah. I think he's. I made a video about him being a Norris candidate the way he started last year. This is why I remember this so well, is because when he plays the way he's playing right now, he is a legitimate number one defenseman. Hopefully he can sustain
He
this
has to
play.
keep it up, right, for a
Right.
long period of time for them to actually be deemed as that.
Of course, of course. And the Norris candidate, don't get me wrong, he's not winning a Norris. The competition's too difficult.
Of course, yeah.
There are a slew of defensemen who are better than him.
And scoring
But
70 points a season.
yes,
So.
exactly. But also not that many anymore. And I do agree, like to some degree, he has hit another level. But I do think this is the same guy last season. I think Cam York had such a strong second half, and Sanheim was injured that a lot of people kind of like downplayed Sanheim's season a little bit. But I think when he's healthy and he does this, like maybe he can put up above 50 points. Maybe he can be a 60-point defenseman. And I think he is now, we talk about all the time, dude, 27 years old is when you start hitting your prime. And if you look at
right
the Travi and notice how, Travis Sanheim and Travis Konechny, both about the same age.
Yeah.
Sanheim's a little bit older. They're both hitting their stride at their late 20s, which is something. And I said it in the preseason, right? I'm like, I think Travis Konechny has another gear. I think this is the best Travis Konechny has ever looked easily. I think he looked great last year. I think he looks even better this year. He is a complete individual player. Like he is going to produce regardless of who he's playing with, just like Sanheim is producing regardless of who he's playing with. And they have essentially become the backbone of this team, which, to be honest with you, I think the emergence of Travis Sanheim is another reason why I believe that Scott Laughton might be at the end of his time here in Philly. Not because Laughton has no value, not because the team doesn't value him, but Sanheim has stepped up as a leader on the team.
Yeah, the leadership aspect.
And that will slowly shift as these guys get older, right? So I think Sanheim's been great, and I said it in the press box at the beginning of last season. Not the press box, I'm sorry, in the press room at practice in preseason. And I was talking to Jordan Hall and Bill Meltzer, and I think Charlie O'Connor was there, and Sam Carchidi and Russ Cohen, and all these people were there. I said it to all of them. I was like, not trading Travis Sanheim was the best decision that they never made. That they weren't able to make. Right.
Yeah.
I was like, I felt that he was going to have a breakout
just imagine what the defense would look like right now if you removed him. They probably would have.
Torrey Krug probably wouldn't even be playing.
Yeah, but
another injured body.
It would be considerably way more losses.
They would have lost all on York.
They would have lost a lot more games without him eating. Think about removing 31 minutes out of the lineup from the defensive aspect. Who would have played those minutes, right? Like. Yeah, it wouldn't have been. It wouldn't be a great thing.
I will say this, and shout out to Rasmus Ristolainen, who maybe people don't agree with this, but he is the number 3 defenseman on this team. People can
At
be
this point, yeah.
at this. You can be upset about it. You can still demand for him to be traded and all that. But at this point, if you really look at the Flyers lineup, Rasmus Ristolainen is the 3rd most reliable defenseman in this
Yeah, he's
group.
playing a lot of heavy minutes against top type of players. He's basically stepping up into top pair role with
And
guys going out here too.
and I think
So
the Flyers should really, and we talked about this already, should consider keeping Sanheim and Risto together and seeing if they can
spread
put
the
York,
wealth.
yeah,
Yeah.
put York with either Nick Seeler, or maybe Jamie Drysdale. I'm not sure how they're going to handle this. They might just put them right back together. But I think knowing that Sanheim can do what he's doing, one that reduces his minutes because you don't have to play that top unit, all the time together. You can kind of spread it out and then put them together on the PK, put them together in certain situations. But it'll be interesting to see what happens when York does return,
Yeah.
because it could actually elevate Sanheim's play even more, just taking some of the brunt off of him
It
as well.
could. Yeah, we'll see what happens with Sanheim. I think through 20 games, it's clear like that, he has taken it to the next level. We'll see if he can really continue that. If that's the case, like he might be a bona fide number 1 defenseman at this point. So
Yeah, which again, this should a lot. There's still some Cam York doubters out there, not in the sense that is he a good defenseman, but how good will he be? I think if you look at what Cam York is doing at his age,
yeah.
and where Sanheim was not there at this age, and if he continues to take leaps the way he has in development, the way he did last year, and he takes another one, I mean, you're talking about 2 legitimate. They already are top pairing guys, the 2 of them
Together, yeah.
but York still has a chance to be a number 1 defenseman in the NHL. It might take him longer than you like, but he's still on that path. And if he was a high producing defenseman at one point. As his defensive game, as he gets stronger and all this stuff, Cam York might be like a backbone of Team USA one day. I don't know if he's going to be like Brian Leach level type of player, but he is that type of player.
Well, it was a backbone for USA, in
Right.
terms of World Juniors, other tournaments. So it wouldn't really be surprising.
I think he led all. I don't know if that's still the case, but at the time he led all US NTDP defensemen in points in a single
It
season.
might be Lane Hudson now who
It could
snuck
be.
up and stole that.
It could be.
York definitely did have that at a point.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's talk about goalies real quick. So obviously there's a goalie controversy here again in Philly. Even last year, well,
Not from the starter though, which is a different change of pace.
Well, he's injured. He's been
Fair,
having injury problems, which I guess is its own controversy. But last year was the best combination duo the Flyers have had probably since I've ever watched them, from a goalie standpoint. Having both Hart and Ersson, and then that ended, obviously, unfortunately. There was a court date for Carter Hart, at least that's been set. And then obviously things were disrupted heavily there, so controversy kind of reared its head again. And then this year the Flyers kind of went in with 2 unknowns with Kolosov and Fedotov. Kolosov not wanting to come over in general, and then Fedotov just being an unknown completely, and also having a small sample size where he didn't do great and then started off poorly. But since then has had strung along a couple really solid games. Now, he did give up a bad goal against Carolina. They did not lose because of Fedotov. I would say only one of the goals were bad.
They left him out to dry a lot.
Yeah, in that third period. I mean, I didn't love the leaky goal he gave up. But considering that Carolina completely took over the game.
Yeah. Nonetheless, I just look at it this way. Like if you're a team
played
and
much better.
If you can't score more than 1 goal, it's not the
right.
goalie's
You
fault.
can't. Yeah, 100%. Well said. But Fedotov has been much better, looking like a legitimate backup. Still has some like awkward moments, but I think that's just the way he plays. But he's also made some great saves. Like in that game against Carolina, he also made some excellent saves.
That save at the end of the second period,
like
like
the double stack
across. Yeah, like that's a rob. Like that's a robbery. Like even if it doesn't look great, like it's unorthodox. He's a big guy who's 6'7".
I don't care. I just want to make a save.
Yeah, but he's not like people are like, oh, he looks so ugly on the ice the way he plays net. Like the technique doesn't look like the other goalies. Like the other North American goalies. First of all, he's 6'7". Playing goalie at 6'7", it's gonna look a little different than a guy that's 6'1" or 6'2". Your extremities, the way you need to drop down to the butterfly, completely different.
Yeah.
So it's just funny for people to be like, oh, like, why does it look so weird? I'm like, because he's 6'8". That's why.
Yeah.
Like, and dropping into the butterfly at that large is going to be a completely different way of doing it than if you're like a regular sized person, man. Like, just shows you haven't played fucking hockey if you're saying shit like that to me.
It's a little different for you because you're a goalie, you're experienced. So you're like, you have a much different angle at it than the average person.
Oh, for sure.
And then Kolosov, while he hasn't been amazing, he has looked really good at times and then okay at other times, considering he's a rookie and 22 years old. It's not bad at all, actually. And the Flyers goaltending depth, and obviously Igor Zavragin's still hanging out there. And we have a Carson Bjarnason update at the end of this podcast too. Looking pretty okay, if not even good. Just got to get Ersson healthy here, but they're going to have some questions to come up. Who's going to be the number 2? I think ideally it's Fedotov, and Kolosov goes and plays for the Phantoms. There are questions of whether he will do that or not. I would hope that he had enough of a taste already to know that he can get called back up at any point and that he will be played. But I guess if you had to pick one, who would you be your pick? I mean, go ahead.
I was going to say, and to add on, like, if you look at it from Kolosov's perspective, beforehand, when Fedotov was playing terrible, he could make the case, well, look how bad he's playing. I deserve to be the backup. At this point, that argument cannot be made. I would say Fedotov has probably outplayed him over the last 4 games in terms of what he's done, right? So if you're the Flyers, you can make that argument to him and say, hey, like, we know you don't really want to play in the AHL. We really have no choice. We can't keep you 3 goalies up here. We want you to develop. We want you to play. Like, Ivan has played better than you. You kind of are forced to go back. Whereas if they tried to make that argument to him before, him and his agent would have been like, come on, he's not playing very well. Like, I deserve the opportunity instead, right? So you can't really make that argument.
Well, the Flyers also aren't doing that to him, too.
Yeah,
they're still playing him. He played really well, and they put him in net anyway against Colorado.
Exactly. So we'll have to see what happens with Ersson.
Like, likes him.
Yeah, I think you just have to hope with Ersson that it's not long term. Like, it was rumored to be groin initially, that injury. Then he comes back, tweaks it a little bit. Now he's out again. Yeah. It's groin, but I think as a goalie, like, that's the worst possible injury to have. Your whole kind of game is centered around the groin, being able to get down to that butterfly position, being able to stretch out. So, like, be precautious, right? Like, you have these 2 guys that will be. I think that's the benefit of having him, like Fedotov and Kolosov, be solid, is you can be precautious. You don't have to throw Cal Peterson and Felix Sandstrom in there this season. You can put
Makaniemi.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were talking about like last year.
Yeah, I'm just saying you don't have to throw these guys that you're not comfortable with it this season. Like, if you look at the whole Flyers game through 20 games, when Ersson first got injured, I was thinking, oh man, the goaltending is going to be the end of this team. It's kind of been the opposite of that, actually, where after Fedotov's 3 games, like, after the first 3 games from Fedotov, I haven't seen a game where I can point to and say, okay, the Flyers goaltending is the reason they lost. Every single night since those first 3 Fedotov games, whether it's Ersson, whether it's Fedotov, whether it's Kolosov, the goalies have been giving this team a chance to win. It's just been the other aspects of the game that have kind of been, hurting them, whether it be defensive play to start the year, or now it's been offensive play to kind of go through the last 10 games where they've struggled to score, struggled to really create chances or really get a lot of shots on net. But the goaltending's probably been the most consistent part of the team's game at this point. So I think at least with Ersson being out late. Yeah, exactly. At least with Ersson being out, you can kind of rely on hopefully Fedotov and Kolosov to, continue to at least give you a chance every night, right? Like, if you're letting in 2-3 goals a night, like they kind of have been consistently here, that gives you a chance to win on every night.
And we talked about it. There's like a warm-up period, a transition period for a lot of these, like, guys just entering the NHL, right? And we thought, I guess, because Fedotov is older, that he wouldn't have to go through it, but it seems like he did kind of go through his own version of it. He's not like in his 30s, right? He's a goaltender who came in at 27 years old here.
Just look at the difference, Yariv. Like, so the first 3 starts, he had a 5.35 goals against and a .821 save percentage. The last 4 starts, a 2.65 goals against and a 910 save percentage. And that is essentially an average NHL type of goalie.
Actually,
right?
The 910 is above.
It is above
average.
average, but yeah, that's what I mean. Like he's playing now like a goalie that belongs in the NHL, whereas beforehand he was a little bit out of
Yeah.
sorts. But you have to factor in like he's only played 8 total NHL games. Like it's going to take longer than 8 games for a guy who's played his whole career at this point in the KHL to get used to
Yeah.
playing in the NHL. It's not just the style of play, the speed of play. It's also just the competition. He's playing guys that are better than the KHL players
Yes.
typically, right? So it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment. But I would say for the goaltending, it's kind of funny because after 20 games, if you would have told me like a week or two ago, what do I think is going to be the biggest weakness? I would have said the goaltending. And now it might be the biggest strength, actually,
Yeah.
if you look at the three
Well,
guys and how they kind of been playing. So,
you wonder if the team can put it all together, right? Like get healthy, get the goaltending now, like through the roughest points, have three solid goalies, which every team needs.
yeah.
And then play well defensively. There is a world where the Flyers make the playoffs this year. I know that's crazy to
Yeah.
say,
It
especially
just
after the start,
seems
but
it seems like a lot of things are out of sync at different times. Like, for example, you had the
that's the
defense.
problem,
The
right?
defense was terrible to start the season. They were scoring a lot of goals, but they couldn't keep the puck out of their net along with the goaltending. And then now that the goaltending and the defense has gone a bit better here, even though there has been some turnovers the last few games, a lot of their offense hasn't been clicking and they haven't been able to score a lot of goals.
They've
So
also had a
we'll
tough schedule.
yeah, we'll see, right? Like if they can kind of get these three facets to all click together. But I think for the Flyers, like after 20 games, if you would have said to, the coaching staff, the management, you're going to be 1 point out of the last wild card spot, still in the thick of the playoff race, they probably would have taken that. And I think the main thing to look at is through 20 games, despite the fact that there's been some, downs, there's been some players that have not, lived up to kind of expectations in terms of some of the younger guys. I think there's a chance for them to really rebound and kind of turn things around, and that probably adds to the Flyers' offense here. But I also just think that you can only really go up. Like there's certain things that have been really bad that are bound to improve, like in terms of just like overall, shooting percentage, overall offensive play. So I think after 20, they're in a decent place, and we'll kind of see where they go from here.
Yeah, yeah, well said. All right, let's transition to the quick intermission, and then we'll do the I guess the last one third of the show here.
Yeah,
So
sure.
just want to remind everybody, please like and subscribe. If you've listened this far and you're not subscribed, please do so now. Give us a like if you like what we're doing. Hit the notification bell for notifications. And for the audio version, follow us on Spotify and iTunes. Give us a rating and a follow there if you can as well. It's the best way to support our podcast. All right, the next topic we have is Morgan Frost. So obviously he's been sitting for quite a bit here. Um, I'll be honest with you, justified. Doesn't has not looked good. Having said that, he can't sit forever. There have been some trade rumors kind of being speculated. I think Elliot Friedman mentioned today that maybe Chicago would be a
Chicago,
good,
yeah.
yeah, would be a good landing spot. That was complete speculation. He's not saying that because it was rumored or anything like that. Having said that, it is a contract year for him. They could bridge him again. He has not played, at least up to this point, to earn a long-term contract. Um, is it the end of the road, for Morgan Frost at some point this year? Not necessarily maybe right now. Listening to Charlie O'Connor, he didn't sound like that optimistic between him and Kevin Kurz that the Flyers were shopping Morgan Frost. His trade value would be pretty low right now in
They're
comparison to what
selling
they
at a low right now
right.
for him.
I think you'd want to get his game turned around first before you try to move him. I think they need to get him back in the lineup though, because reality is that we don't really have centerman with his skill set. Like I think Sean Couturier is a better player, but he's not like a pure playmaking, speedy
He
center
doesn't
type
have
of
that
guy.
type of skill in terms of the passing, playmaking ability that Frost really
See,
has.
I think
He's their only like I would say Frost in terms of like high end type of like passing skill. Like
yeah,
Couturier does have the ability to do that, but I mean Frost has better skill
he's
to
like
him.
he's dynamic and wiry and
Yeah.
like shifty, right? Like Coots is not a shifty player. You would not
Yeah.
describe him as that, but Frost does have that game. I personally, I think where he is, what kind of contract he's gonna want, you know, I think it is start time to start looking at moving on from Morgan Frost. Not at a loss. I'm not rushing to move him out of town for like nothing. I'd rather trade him in the offseason and just reset when I have the opportunity.
Yeah.
But I do think with the picks the Flyers have available, depending on what becomes available as the season goes on from other teams, there might be an opportunity to add one of the picks that the Flyers have along with Morgan Frost and try to get that centerman that you feel that you need. Somebody maybe is having, kind of contract issues with the team, good player, but knows they're not resigning where they are and could look at Philadelphia as a long-term landing spot. Maybe the guy is 25, 26 years old. I would definitely, around kind of Frost age, I would definitely look at some. Obviously, the name Trevor Zegras has been out there. He is also still struggling.
A lot.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if like he's necessarily going to fit Tortorella's system as much, or more than Morgan Frost. But I think there could be opportunities out there. I think first and foremost, what I would like to see is to see Frost back with Owen Tippett. I'd like to see Owen Tippett back with Frost in the lineup and see Michkov back with Couturier and Konechny. If you really look at the way, like especially 4-on-4, 3-on-3, Tortorella puts TK and Michkov together like every time.
You might as well just do it at 5-on-5.
Right. Yeah. I don't fully understand it. I just think Owen Tippett's game is the type of guy where like you can put him kind of with anybody, where his whole thing is like speed up the freaking wing, cut to the middle, and take a shot. Like he doesn't need TK. I mean, just like TK doesn't need Tippett, right? Like
I think for Frost, like this is the make or break season for him with the Flyers, in my opinion, right? Like he's got 6 points in 16 games, not that great. I just think what is disappointing is that this is the first time he's really actually gotten a legitimate opportunity without the coach and the staff kind of pulling him out like to start the season. Like they gave him 16 games before scratching him. Like they gave him a lot of time. First power play unit or usage for most of those games, even top line usage, playing with like the most talented players on the team.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I do think the power play is better with Frost in.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, well, he facilitates the puck really well with space, so it just makes sense in terms of his skill set. But yeah, like he's had games where he's played with Michkov and Tippett, games with Konechny and Tippett. Like, he's been playing and been paired with some of the best players on the team. I think the thing that makes it a make or break year for him is that he's finally getting the actual opportunity. So he can't say himself and his camp can't say, well, you're not giving us the ice time. You're not giving us the chances, right? Like he's getting the opportunity and it's not happening in these minutes. Like he's not creating the chances, or if he is, like he's missing blatant empty nets, and it might be a bit of a confidence type of thing. I just think though this is the time, like you're getting the chance to prove it. Now's the time to do it if you want to like cement yourself here in Philadelphia, earn that type of long-term contract, right? I think him re-entering the lineup is going to be the key pivotal factor to whether or not they keep him. I think like I don't know if he's going to re-enter against Chicago, but I think whenever he does get back in here, the next 5-10 games after he re-enters is going to be a pivotal stretch. How does he react? How does he react to being benched? How does he react to it happening again with him and Tortorella? Even John Tortorella said, like, he cannot continue to coach him the same way he has been the last few years. It's not fair to him, right? And that kind of speaks to, like, a writing on the wall kind of situation where, like, if it's not going to work here, like, we gave you the shot, maybe somewhere else, maybe we could find something that works for us in some sort of deal. But I think if he can come back in and play well, I think it kind of shifts the whole narrative and like, okay, he dealt with this scratching really well. The offense is coming. Maybe this was like the wake up call needed. And maybe like having this chance, opportunity, there's a lot of pressure on him to start the season. That's kind of why he buckled under that. But I think if he comes back in and his plays the same way and the offensive production isn't great, he looks kind of disengaged, I think it's probably over, unfortunately.
Yeah, because like even now I look at the lineup, I'm like, who do you sit for? It's not like you're sitting Delorier, right?
Yeah.
And Anthony Richard's been playing well
and scoring, which is what you kind of need on a team that's like lacking offense. I mean, it's probably going to be Brink. Okay, so it could be. I think it's possibly Brink, Lawton, Cates. Like those are probably the three.
I don't think he's going to sit Cates. He's playing well defensively.
He's playing good defensively, right? But I just think those are the four realistic options. Like Richard, Cates, Lawton, Brink. Forster maybe, but I just think you've already sat him once. I don't know. As a young guy, I would just want to keep him in there, let him work through it. Lately, that's what I mean. Yeah. I personally think it'll be Lawton. Like, I think next game, I wouldn't be surprised to see Lawton get scratched and
Right.
Frost replace him,
That's what
just
I
to kind
think.
of send some sort of a message. But we'll ultimately see. But I think it's definitely one of those 4 or 5 guys. I can't see anybody else coming out,
Yeah.
instead of those 4 or 5.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be Paling. So I don't know, but it's also showing like why it's a problem that he didn't hit his stride. And again,
It's
like
like you finally got this chance. Like, you've been clamoring, okay, give me that PP1 time. Give me that top, 6 time with guys that are skilled wingers, and he hasn't really produced much. So at this point,
which
it's like,
is crazy.
what else do you need, right? So
He's such a polarizing player because
because
he
some
has
games
these
you can see the skill come out in
yeah,
flashes, but I just think for him it might just be a consistency thing where, like, maybe he just cannot consistently do this on a night-to-night basis, and there's certain
well
guys in the NHL that never put it together for a full 82 games.
well that's why I think there's a team out there that probably would want Frost, and maybe the rumors are coming from teams calling about him because
Yeah, could be.
he has a skill set that a lot of teams would want, and they might look at the way they play as a team and go, "Well, we need a guy
We
like
could
that,
use that. Yeah.
and we think we can get more out of him." It doesn't mean you're going to get like tremendous value, but I know if like I was a team that was struggling to score, and I saw a guy like Frost out there, you know, who has dynamic play, and I think I can get him for cheap, right? Like
Let's
that
see what you
might
could
be,
do. Yeah.
yeah. But I think the Flyers are more interested in kind of what I talked about, where it's like they'd rather add a pick with him and try to
Yeah.
get like a
Or
guy that they know will fit their team and will be there. Otherwise, they might just hold on to him
or
and
struggling player for another struggling player type of thing.
right.
Who
We'll
knows?
see. We'll see. Like if they do, like let's say they were even considering trading him for, let's say Trevor Zegras was actually on the trading block, which I don't know if he actually is. In that case, if you take Trevor Zegras over, he's making $6 million a year. It's like double, more
And
than
he only
double
has
what
six
Frost
points,
makes.
and he only has 6 points in 18 games as well
Right,
this season. So
exactly.
they're both playing like shit, realistically.
Right.
But I mean, what are you gonna do, right?
It's just, but the cap number is high on
Yeah,
Zegras,
and that's
where
why I
the
mean,
cap number is not high for Frost.
if you're the Flyers, you're saying no, I don't want to make that trade because I don't know if Zegras is going to return to form, and it's a big risk for salary wise. Like, if
That
he doesn't, you're eating 6 mil of cap for years for a guy that's not playing well.
that's
So
why I don't think Frost will get traded. In the immediate. I think
yeah,
if anything, it's like a trade deadline thing where they're like, all right, we gave it the entire season almost.
still not
We
working
have the option of either bridging him again or
or just
moving
letting him
on and,
go.
and
Yeah,
getting a second round pick for him, which is that's what he was, or he was a late first, but getting like a second round pick or again just like I don't know, you know, or an equal value player.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I think he's going to be with the team for a bit. I'm more interested to see him re-enter the lineup and see if he can get this
Well,
off because the Flyers need what he brings.
I just want to see how he reacts, right?
I
Like,
was thinking that
if
against Carolina. I was like, man, this is like
it'll
a game
be
where you want
it'll
a Frost
be yeah, it'll
in the
be
lineup.
interesting to just see how he reacts. I think if he comes back in and takes it well and we see him start to produce, he's going to get those same opportunities. If
Yeah,
he comes in and the play is just the same, like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's back out once again right after in the next game. Like,
yeah.
just the way Tortorella's kind of used him the last few years, you can't rule it out. So
Yeah, the future is in his hands. All right, let's do I added something here for the Phantoms. But it's more just a quick update that Sawyer
sure.
Bolton and Mason Primo have both been sent to the ECHL. I think that's actually a good sign. At least with Sawyer Bolton. I'm a little surprised about Mason Primo, but just because he's been an AHL player. But the Phantoms are doing well right now.
They have a lot of depth too, so
Yeah, the new guy they added is a point per game. What's his name? Gleason.
yeah.
He's got 4 assists in 4 games. They seem to be kind of hitting their stride. Tuamala's killing it. They lost Richard and they're not.
Just after
Um,
we called out Lappy last week.
yeah, and
And
honestly,
Rashad.
I'm really happy to see. I want to be wrong because I
Me
don't
too,
think.
yeah.
Yeah, like I need the Phantoms to be competitive. It's really getting to me that they've been mediocre like every season. So, they lost Andre, they lost Richard, and they're winning games. So that's what I want to see. And if Kolosov ends up being their starting goaltender, like in the playoffs or whatever, because if the Flyers don't make the playoffs, they're going to send Kolosov down to
Oh, of course,
play
yeah.
in the playoffs in the AHL. Um, so we'll see what happens there. Anything you want to add about the Phantoms?
No. Should be good to
Okay.
go.
You want to do our prospect updates here? Actually, let me state this one thing first.
Sure, yeah, and then
Um,
we can hammer through them to end
yeah,
here.
because I do want to talk about this particularly. So I did mention Carson Bjarnason earlier. I saw this going around online that as of right now, well, this might have changed recently, but as of the other day, Carson Bjarnason leads the WHL in save percentage with a .920 save percentage.
Wow, really good. Especially from
Um,
the beginning of the year was the numbers were a little
I was,
down
gonna-
to start.
I mean, throughout his entire juniors career, he's had a sub 900 save percentage, and right now he's at .920 save percentage and a 2.82 goals
Yeah.
against, and he's 4-4-2 on the
His
season.
team's not great either,
But
so
right, but it is proof that we need not enough, but that he has hit another level. We saw it here. We saw him play in the play-ins for the World Juniors, and he looked like a different goalie. This is very important that he come out strong because we can't just rely on Zavragin. We need to have more than one good goalie in the prospect pool, and it looks like Bjarnason is starting to put it all together.
yeah, he's been playing really well. But yeah, let's go through the prospects here. So I'll do what do we have in total here? We got a lot. I'll do up to like 20, Yariv, and then you
Yeah,
want to
sure.
take it,
Yeah,
and then
why don't we switch it up? Yeah, do the top 20 and then I'll just take it over from there.
all right, awesome. So first we have Ilya Pautov, who's in the MHL. He's got 20 points in 23 games played. That's a 0.87 points per game. So he's keeping up the point production. We have Denver Barkey, who has actually passed the point a game rate. So he's at 18 points, 2 goals, 16 assists in 16 games. He's a 1.13 point per game. That's good to see. After the mono battle there. We have Jack Berglund, who in the J20, 13 points in 9 games, so over a point per game. 15 games so far for him in the SHL as well. He's got 3 points in 15 games there, but that's also, a level up playing with men. So he's kind of trying to adjust himself to that league, that level of play. So we'll see kind of how he progresses as he continues to play in the main league in Sweden there. Then after that, we have Samu Tuomala, 16 points in 14 games for the Phantoms. He's got 1.114 point per game average there. We have Oliver Bonk, who's almost at a point a game as well. He's at 15 points in 16 games for a .94 point per game average. We have Spencer Gill after him, who's in the QMJHL, 14 points in 20 games. He's got a .7 point per game average. Cole
It's going up.
Knuble, yeah,
He's also a
Cole
plus 17.
yeah, he's killing it there in terms of just that stat. And then Cole Knuble has really turned it around. 13 points in 10 games to begin here. After we saw how slow he kind of started last season, but yeah, and also +8 as well for him. So that's pretty good start in Notre Dame there. Alex Siernik, he's got 12 points in 18 games. 0.67 point per game rate. Jet Lichenko's up to over a point per game now. He's really turned things around offensively after a couple of games to start where Guelph is just getting blown out nightly. So he's really turned it around. 11 points.
They're playing tonight also.
Yeah, 11 points in 8 games, 1.38 points per game. So I expect that to probably continue, just the over a point per game for him. Lixell's kind of picking it up a bit as well. He was about at half a point per game, but now he's almost at point 80 point per game average. So he has 11 points in 14 games. Next up's Heikki Ruohonen. He's in the USHL. He's got 10 points in 16 games. Salteri Sulku is in the Mestis League, and he's got 9 points in 7 games. Anthony Richard obviously is with the Flyers now, 6 points in 7 games, but he did have 9 points in 7 games for the Phantoms as well. Austin Moline as a 9-point average in 17 games. He is a +14 though, so that's something to note there. Alex Bump is a point per game exactly. He's 8 points in 8 games in Western Michigan University. Rodrigo Abels, 8 points in 13 games for the Phantoms. We have Ben Gleason. That's a point a game for the Phantoms, 4 assists in 4 games since he's joined. And he's got 8 points overall in 11 games. Then we have Oscar Eklund, who's got 7 points in 14 games for the Phantoms. Hunter McDonald, who's got 7 points in 14 games and a +9, and his defensive game's actually been coming around quite a bit in the last couple of weeks here as well. Then 20th, we have Owen McLaughlin, and he's got 7 points in 11 games for University of North Dakota. It's all yours, Yariv.
Yeah, McLaughlin, I thought would put up better productivity so far, but I do agree. Hunter McDonald putting up points, and he's been one of their best players for the
Yeah,
Phantoms. So it's a really
definitely.
good sign. I don't expect him to get called up this year, just in case anybody's wondering. I think he's more of a next season type of guy.
Yeah, let him develop, right?
Yeah, let him cook. Um, Next, Alexis Gendron. Still hasn't scored the past couple games, but still 5 goals, 1 assist in 8 games. Very good for a rookie. Didn't really have a rookie season. Looks like Lappy's been using him in the top 6 now. Kind of giving him
Kind of
no
what we
choice.
what we asked for. So
Yeah. Mateo Mann sits with 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points total in 18 games in the queue. I'm not sure where he's going to end up after this season. I assume he's going to go come over to the Phantoms. We'll see, but he seems more ECHL bound. Carter Sutherland, really having a down year, but starting to improve a little bit. He was like a -17 or something like that at one point. He's -13 now, and he does have 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points in 18 games. So improving. It might not look great, but it's so far it's getting better than it started because he had almost no points and he was -17 at one point. So getting better. Ethan Sansom, who's starting to grab some attention with the Phantoms. He does have 5 points in 14 games. Again, he was a really late round pick. We know his father, Sean. We've had him on the podcast. I'm really interested to see where Sanson ends up. I think for sure he's not getting called up this year, but he might be one of those guys who surprises people next season as getting some interest from the Flyers. I think he's a long-term project for them, but he's got kind of everything you're looking for in a prospect. It's just, will he put it all together? He's big and he's two-way, so I'm interested to see how his game develops. Rhett Gardner, 5 points. Number one center, Rhett Gardner. So frustrating to me. Lappy was playing him as number one center. 1 goal, 4 assists, 5 points. Again, he's like 28 years old. Devin Kaplan, still not really producing too much, but 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points in 11 games in the NCAA. I'm not sure really what's going to happen with Devin Kaplan, but I think his stock, at least as an NHL prospect, might be going down. We'll see. It's a little deceiving, but it's his 3rd year with Boston University, and he's not anywhere near a point per game right now. Elliot Denoye seems to be continuing his trend of last season. 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points in 12 games. He might be one of those guys who ends up getting traded before he actually makes the NHL. Louis Belpedio, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points in 14 games, a +4. Just doing steady Louis Belpedio things for the Phantoms. He's playing with Hunter McDonald, so I'm pretty sure that's been their best pairing. Noah Powell. We didn't really mention the fact that he actually isn't playing in the USHL and he is now playing in the NCAA. We kind of talked about him struggling. Kind of makes a lot more sense when you realize he's playing in a better league now.
he had a really nice goal
I
the
was
other
just
day.
about to say that he
Yeah.
had a beautiful highlight goal the other day. He only has 1 goal so far in 9 games, 2 assists. He's like, I don't know how you feel about this, but like kind of like give him time to cook. And
Yeah.
he took some time in the
I mean,
USHL
he
too.
led that league in goal scoring, right? So I think he might just be a late bloomer at a lot of different
Right.
levels where you kind of have to take a little bit of time, figure it out. Then once he figures it out, it really clicks, and then you kind of see everything
Right.
fall into place, right?
Yeah.
I think the upside is definitely there with him, so it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to continue to follow him.
Well,
But
he had no points originally, so he's had 3 points in probably 4 or 5 games so far.
yeah,
So since starting off cold, so I think he is a guy we'll see better numbers from. Helge Grans had 1 goal, 2 assists. He's with the Flyers now. He did get an assist with the Flyers, which is nice. He was a -2 last night. I wouldn't really put it on him completely there, but I actually really like Helge Grans. What I like about him is not that I think he's gonna be like a great defenseman or anything like that, but for a bottom pairing guy, which it looks like to be most likely what he is, like a number 6. He's got size and speed, and he can move the puck. So again, he's still pretty young. Maybe he'll end up being better than that. But if he can be like an NHL defenseman with those skill sets, that's pretty good. You know, it's a guy you feel comfortable playing in the bottom pairing, and he's not a weakness. He's been good so far. Brian Zanetti, 1 goal, 2 assists in 19 games. Again, I still don't believe he's ever coming over here. J.R. Avon, I was really hoping he would kind of take off offensively this year. Doesn't seem to be the case. 3 assists in 12 games. We'll see how that continues. He's another guy that, I think he has another season left here beyond this, but it's really this season and next year. I don't know how much time the Flyers will let him cook more beyond that. Zayd Wisdom, because of his game, overall, I do think they might wait a little bit longer. He seems to be improving. 2 assists in 11 games. He's at least sticking with the Phantoms. He might be like that fourth line agitator that they just like because he plays physical. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see what happens with him. Emil Andre, 1 assist in 1 game. He's a Flyer at this point, and I don't really expect him to go anywhere. Ty Merchant.
I predicted that. Just saying.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Ty Murchison, he's been awesome. Really, really awesome.
Yeah.
It's funny because we compared him to Samuel Girard, like when he was drafted.
Yeah.
No,
Andre. Yeah.
It seems like that's what he's turning into. Top 4.
He moves the puck really well. So
yeah,
that's what I like. The aggressiveness.
They're about the same size.
Just not afraid to take a chance to make a play. Yeah. I mean, that's what Tortorella really seems to love about him. So.
Yeah, and his size has. I didn't think overall it would be an issue throughout his career, but so far this year it doesn't seem to be an issue, which is awesome. Which means maybe Chemo Timonen level is possible for him. Who knows? We'll see. That's big shoes to fill, but he shows a lot of the spunk that Timonen had. Ty Murchison, 1 assist in 12 games in the NCAA. I don't think he's going to get signed by the Flyers. Adam Yinning, struggling. It's a shame. He's got 1 assist in 14 games, but more of the -8 is what I'm noticing. And obviously did not get the call up above Helge Grans, so that should tell you a little bit where Yinning's game is going. He is still signed beyond this year to next year. So we'll see what happens with him, but he'd probably just stick with the Phantoms at this point if he doesn't improve. Ryan McPherson, 5 games, 0 points. And Massimo Rizzomo has still not played a game.
He's had that, appendicitis surgery?
Yeah.
Surgery? Hopefully you can see him get into some action.
Yeah. So Yegor Zavragin, again, overall in the season, 19 games played, 2.29 goals against, save percentage of .930 with 3 shutouts. It's awesome for KHL numbers. St. Petersburg, he's 6-4, 2.32 goals against, and a .9224 save percentage. And again, still showing strong play. But I think he is splitting some time still. Carson Bjarnason, I mentioned him already. Matej Tomek, I don't think he's ever coming over to the Phantoms or the Flyers, but 7 games, 2.29 goals against, and a .912 save percentage, 5-2 in the Czech League. A2 Makaniemi, who unfortunately I think got injured recently.
Yeah, he did.
He's got a 3.03 goals against and a .899 save percentage, 3-0-2 on the year. He did have higher numbers. They dropped after last game, probably his injury game. And Cal Peterson, pretty similar, 3.06 goals against and a .886 save percentage. He is 2-3-1, not the best of seasons. And then, whoa,
bless you.
Thank you. And then Kolosov, his stats with the Flyers. Let me actually pull those up. But his stats in the AHL were 4 games, 3.29 save percentage, and a .875 save percentage, a 1-2-1 record. His stats with the Flyers is a 3.71 goals against and a .872 save percentage, and he has 0 wins. So if you're wondering who's going to be sent back down, it's going to be Kolosov, and hopefully he's okay with it because he while he hasn't looked bad, his numbers are not good enough to justify
Yeah,
the
exactly.
argument.
And they're
So
paying Fedotov a lot more money, so it just
yeah,
makes sense
I
overall.
think his numbers also would be much better in the AHL. He would have lifted up his save percentage and reduced his goals against because the
Yeah.
Phantom started playing better once he left, which is why the goalies have better stats now because they both had worse stats than Kolosov at one point. Cool. That's it. That's all we got for the show. Anything else you want to leave the audience with, my friend?
No, I'm gonna have an article coming out paired with this episode, so check Flyers Nitty Gritty out for that, and just keep checking the website out. We have articles coming out every single day here.
Yeah, Wilson. Yeah, just want to remind everybody if you made it this far and you haven't subscribed, what are you doing? Please subscribe. Give us a like if you like what we do. And if you could share it out too, that's also awesome. Also, hit the bell for notifications to get notified on when our episodes come out. For the audio versions, go to Spotify and iTunes. Give us a ratings there and a follow as well. Those are tremendously helpful. We're really trying to get those up. So if you've listened this far and you haven't done that yet, please do that for us. It would be awesome. And also, shout out to our sponsors, Jim Steaks at 4th and South. Make sure to get yourself a cheesesteak from Jim's. They have one of the best, if not the best, cheesesteak in Philadelphia. Also, Public Summit Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Go to them for all your insurance adjustment needs and help them facilitate the process between you and your insurance company. Again, Public Summit Adjusters, 215-752-0560. And also a shout out to our partner, Sports Spider. Make sure to check out the link to sportspider.com in the description. You can get there by searching for sportspider.com on your web browser. They are the aggregator of all of your sports information and definitely all of your hockey content. They have podcasts, articles, videos, stuff like that. It's a good site. Make sure to check it out. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Vasili. Appreciate you, buddy.
You too,
And
bro.
yeah, we love you guys and thank you for all the support. And we'll keep stuff coming as the season rolls on. Thank you so much. And remember, always stay gritty.